I shifted uncomfortably in the specialist's waiting room, trying to find a position that didn't send shooting pains through my hip. Mom sat beside me, scrolling through her phone, occasionally sighing at how long we'd been waiting. "This is a waste of time, Emily," she said, not looking up. "Dr. Stevens is just going to tell you the same thing as everyone else. You need to exercise more and stop being so dramatic about normal growing pains." I bit back a response. At 17, I've been hearing variations of this message for the past 3 years. Every time I complained about the pain, every time I couldn't finish dance practice, every time I woke up crying in the middle of the night, it was always the same. "You're too sensitive. Stop exaggerating. It's all in your head. You're just trying to get attention." But this time was different. This time I had a referee's report from the soccer game where I collapsed, unable to stand. This time I had a school nurse's documentation of swelling and discoloration. This time they couldn't dismiss it as teenage dramatics. "Emily Stevens," a nurse called my name, and I struggled to my feet, trying not to wince. "Do you need me to come in?" Mom asked, finally looking up. "The doctor will want to speak with both of you," the nurse answered before I could respond. The examination room was cold and the paper crinkled loudly as I sat on the table. Dr. Stevens, a tall woman with steel gray hair and kind eyes, entered carrying a thick file. "Emily," she smiled warmly, "I've reviewed your records, including your recent MRI. But before we discuss those, I'd like to hear from you about when this pain started." Before Mom could jump in with her usual explanations, Dr. Stevens held up a hand. "Mrs. Stevens, I'd like to hear Emily's version first, please." For the first time in 3 years, someone wanted my story. The words poured out. "It started in freshman year, during dance rehearsals. At first, it was just stiffness after practice, but then it got worse. My hip would lock up, and sometimes I'd get this burning sensation down my leg. The school nurse said it might be growing pains, but it never went away." "And how did this affect your daily activities?" Dr. Stevens asked, taking notes. "I had to quit dance. I couldn't sit through long classes without shifting positions. Sometimes I couldn't sleep because of the pain. I tried to keep playing soccer, but," I glanced at Mom, who was frowning. "Last week during the game, my leg just gave out." "And what treatments have you tried?" "We try ibuprofen," Mom interjected. "And heat packs. The pediatrician said it was normal teenage complaints." "I see." Dr. Stevens' expression was unreadable as she pulled up my MRI images on her tablet. "Mrs. Stevens, Emily, I need to show you something." The images meant nothing to me, just gray shapes on a black background. But Dr. Stevens began pointing out specific areas, her voice growing more serious. "This is Emily's hip joint. See these irregular areas? This isn't growing pains. Emily has a condition called hip dysplasia, likely present since birth but exacerbated by athletic activities. The socket of her hip joint is too shallow, causing the ball of the femur to slip out of place repeatedly." Mom's dismissive expression faltered. But the pediatrician should have ordered imaging studies when Emily first reported persistent pain," Dr. Stevens said firmly. "Because this went untreated for so long, there's significant labral tearing and the beginning of arthritis." The collapse during the soccer game was inevitable. Her joint was literally coming apart. The room went silent. I could feel tears running down my face, not from pain this time, but from relief. Finally, someone believed me. Finally, there was proof. "What?" Mom's voice cracked. "What does this mean for Emily?" "It means," Dr. Stevens said, "that your daughter has been walking around with a serious orthopedic condition for years, while being told she was exaggerating. It means she'll need surgery, followed by extensive physical therapy, and it means that some of the damage is permanent." Mom's face had lost all color. "Permanent?" "If this had been caught earlier, we might have had more conservative treatment options. Now surgery is the only way to prevent complete joint failure." I watched as my mother's worldview visibly crumbled. All those times she'd accused me of being dramatic, of seeking attention, of making mountains out of molehills. They played across her face like a slideshow of guilt. "When can we schedule the surgery?" I asked, my voice stronger than I expected. Dr. Stevens smiled at me, respect in her eyes. "Let's talk about your options." The drive home from Dr. Stevens' office was silent. The thick packet of surgical information sat heavy in my lap. Along with prescriptions for pain medication, Real pain medication, not just the ibuprofen I've been told to stop relying on. Mom gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. Twice she opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. What could she say? Sorry I didn't believe you when you were literally falling apart. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. How did it go? He hadn't been able to leave work for the appointment, confident it would be another waste of time. I wondered how Mom would explain this to him. The surgery is scheduled for next month, I texted back. It's bad, Dad, really bad. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, coming home now. When we pulled into our driveway, my best friend Sophie was waiting on the porch. She'd been the only one who believed me all these years, who saw how I fought through the pain at dance practice until I finally had to quit. Well, she asked, helping me out of the car. I'm not crazy, I said, my voice cracking. It's real. It's all been real. Mom made a small choked sound behind me. Inside, I spread the medical documents across the kitchen table. Sophie sat beside me while Mom paced, occasionally stopping to stare at the MRI images as if hoping they'd somehow change. 3 years, Sophie said quietly. You've been dealing with this for 3 years. The surgery success rate is good, I said, focusing on the facts because I couldn't handle the emotions yet. But Dr. Stevens says I'll probably never dance again. And running. I swallowed hard. Running is definitely out. Emily, Mom finally spoke, her voice rough. I don't know how to. She was interrupted by Dad bursting through the door, still in his work clothes, face flushed from rushing home. Show me everything, he demanded. So we did. The MRI images. The surgical plans. The long list of activities I'd never be able to do again. The longer list of things I should never have been doing with this condition. All those competitions, Dad said hoarsely. All those times we push you to just push through the pain. The human body is remarkably adaptive, I quoted Dr. Stevens. I was compensating, changing how I moved to protect the joint. That's why it looked like nothing was wrong. But each time, I was causing more damage. Sophie squeezed my hand as Mom sank into a chair, looking shell-shocked. Remember the dance recital, she whispered. Junior year? When you said you couldn't finish rehearsal, and I told you to stop being such a drama queen. I remembered forcing myself through the performance, tears streaming down my face, while Mom beamed proudly from the audience, thinking she taught me an important lesson about perseverance. You couldn't have known, I said, but the words felt hollow. We should have listened, Dad corrected. We should have believed you. Dr. Stevens' words echoed in my head. Pain is the body's warning system. When a young person consistently reports pain, we need to listen. The surgery, Mom said, pulling herself together. What do you need? How long is recovery? 6 to 8 weeks on crutches, I read from the packet. Then physical therapy for at least 6 months. I'll miss the start of senior year. I'll help you keep up with classes, Sophie promised. We can study together during your recovery. My parents exchanged looks, having one of their silent conversations. I'll take leave from work, Mom said finally, for the surgery and recovery. I need to be there this time. The magnitude of what we were facing settled over the room. This wasn't just about surgery and recovery. It was about trust broken and needing to be rebuilt. About learning to listen instead of dismiss. About the long-term consequences of not believing someone's pain. Dr. Stevens wants to see me weekly until the surgery, I said, to monitor the joint and adjust pain management. We'll make it work, Dad said firmly. Whatever you need, Emily. No more questioning. No more dismissing. Sophie helped me gather the papers, organizing them into the folder Dr. Stevens had provided. As she did, a small card fell out, Dr. Stevens' personal cell number, with a note. Anytime you need validation, call me. You're not being dramatic. You're being heard. I clutched the card, thinking of all the teenagers like me, fighting to be believed about their pain. How many others were being told they were just seeking attention? I need to lie down, I said, suddenly exhausted. The pain's getting bad. This time, nobody told me to tough it out. Nobody suggested it was all in my head. Instead, Mom rushed to help me up, her hands gentle, her eyes full of 3 years' worth of regret. 1 year after the surgery, I sat in Dr. Stevens' office for my final follow-up appointment. The scar on my hip had faded to a pale line, and while I'd never dance again, I could walk without pain. a victory that once seemed impossible. Your recovery has been remarkable, Dr. Stevens said, reviewing my latest scans. How are you feeling? Different, I answered honestly. Stronger, but not just physically. She nodded, understanding what I meant. The past year had transformed more than just my hip joint. It had transformed my entire family dynamic. Mom sat beside me, no longer scrolling through her phone or dismissing my concerns. She'd taken 3 months off work during my recovery, attending every physical therapy session, learning exercises to help me at home. More importantly, she'd learned to listen. I've been thinking about starting a support group, I told Dr. Stevens, for teenagers dealing with chronic pain and medical gaslighting. Would you be willing to speak sometimes? I'd be honored, she smiled. Your story has already helped change how we approach young patients in this practice. It was true. After my case, the practice had implemented new protocols for evaluating persistent pain in adolescents. No more automatic dismissals of teenage complaints. No more assumptions about drama or attention seeking. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie about our college plans. We'd both been accepted to state universities, mine with a focus on patient advocacy and healthcare administration. My experience had shown me exactly what I wanted to do with my life. Emily's speaking at the medical conference next month, Mom said proudly, about the importance of believing young patients. Dr. Stevens beamed. I'll be in the front row. The conference invitation had come after I'd written an article for the local paper about my experience. The response had been overwhelming. Hundreds of messages from other teenagers and parents who'd gone through similar situations. Dad had cried when he read the article. I wish we'd listened sooner, he'd said, but I'm so proud of how you're helping others now. As we left Dr. Stevens' office, I moved carefully but confidently. My gait would never be perfect. Too many years of compensation had created permanent changes in how I walked. But I was pain-free for the first time in years. Coffee? Mom suggested. These mother-daughter coffee dates had become our new tradition, a time for open, honest conversation. At the cafe, I showed her the draft of my conference speech. She read it carefully, tears welling up at certain parts. The most damaging pain wasn't physical, she read aloud. It was the pain of not being believed, of having my reality constantly questioned. Is it too harsh? I asked. She shook her head. It's exactly what people need to hear. My support group was starting next week. 20 teenagers had already signed up, all with stories similar to mine. Parents who dismissed their pain. Doctors who assumed they were exaggerating. Years of damage done by delays in treatment. Sometimes I still feel guilty, Mom admitted, setting down the speech. When I see you limping after a long day or when you talk about dancing. I know, I said gently, but we can't change the past. We can only learn from it. And we had learned. My parents had become advocates for believing children's pain. Dad had started a scholarship fund for teens needing specialized medical care. Mom volunteered at the hospital, helping parents navigate complex medical diagnoses. Dr. Stevens had told me once that healing comes in many forms. The surgery had healed my hip, but the real healing had come from finally being heard, believed, validated. My phone buzzed again. A message from one of my future support group members. Thank you for sharing your story. It gave me courage to keep fighting for answers. I smiled, showing Mom the message. She squeezed my hand, understanding the weight of it. We weren't just healing my old wounds anymore. We were helping prevent new ones, creating a future where teenagers wouldn't have to fight so hard to have their pain taken seriously. Ready for the conference? Mom asked. I nodded, thinking of all the faces I'd seen in that audience, all the stories yet to be heard. Ready to make some noise, I said. And this time, no one's calling it dramatic.